Hi! So the past few weeks have been quite eventful when it comes to Season 5 news. We've received multiple short stories, multiple images, and a more precise release date. Today, I want to go through these images and analyze them, as well as telling you the release date of Season 5 of The Dragon Prince. So by now, many of you will have already seen this one, showing the Dragang plus Nyx minus Zim on a ship looking back towards another red-sailed ship that seems to have either just passed them or is approaching them. And some interesting things to point out here is that they seem to be on Villas' ship. I made a post on Twitter comparing Villas' ship and this one, and unless it's just an exact model, this ship is eerily similar, so maybe we'll see Villas this season. And now we move on to images that have all been released in one huge bundle of screenshots, given to us by the official Dragon Prince Twitter account, starting off with this one. This picture is quite telling, because it seems that Viren has fallen into some sort of dark magic coma, similar to how Callum experienced a dark dream back in Season 2. They seem to be in some kind of marshland carrying him, and some people in my fan server, along with the main Dragon Prince Discord server, have suggested that this could be perhaps the Black Tundra, which is here on the map. But that is of course unknown for now. This also implies that the scene takes place rather early in the season, as we know that Viren entered his dark magic coma right after escaping Umber Tor. The next image we come to gives way to a lot of speculation. Here, we see Rayla and Stella in what appears to be Viren's old study, the same room where they found Zim as an egg, revealed by the spiral staircase behind her. But what most people are interested in is the coin. We are aware of 4 total cursed coins, and we know that 3 of the 4 are currently in Rayla's possession. We also know that the souls trapped within them are Renan, Lane, and Teodrin, but the 4th one has remained a mystery. However, lots of evidence leads to the 4th coin actually being Kapar, Viren's former dark magic mentor, who mysteriously went missing when Soren and Claudia were both still kids. Kapar was mentioned a couple of times in the Book 2 novelization, and we are getting a short story soon-ish called Puzzle House, which gives us a whole bunch of information about this mysterious individual. If we look at Rayla's expression here, we see a slight amount of confusion. That, plus the fact that the camera angle isn't showing us the face on said coin, leads me to believe that this scene is actually Rayla discovering the 4th coin, aka Kapar. The handcuffs in this scene are quite telling too, as these could be the very same handcuffs Renan was imprisoned with, or perhaps even Kapar himself. They're also likely the same ones Callum used to trap Claudia within the first few episodes. Next up, we have this beautiful shot of Amaya and Janai, where Amaya is holding what looks like a gift from Janai in the form of a Sunforged dagger, similar to that of Tristan's dagger from Season 1. On top of the scene looking beautiful, there's a very prevalent detail here in the form of this flower. This flower looks suspiciously like an orchid. A while back at WonderCon, the same con that released the first Season 5 poster by the way, a bunch of out-of-context spoiler cards were handed out, and one of them said Crimson Orchid. I don't know about you, but this looks like a Crimson Orchid to me. The theme of these spoiler cards corresponding to these screenshots continues as well throughout the screenshot dump. The next image we get is a nice wholesome Terry and Claudia moment. Well, it would be wholesome if Sparklepuff wasn't so disgusted by the PDA, but maybe it's something completely unrelated. It is Sparklepuff after all. Sir Sparklepuff, sorry. We can also guess that this scene happens quite early on in the season, because it appears that they are still in the Drakewood somewhere. Also, look at the size of this Adorabur! I want one, can I have one please? I'll do anything. Anyways, other than the location, the only other thing of note here is the absence of Viren. This is likely due to the fact that he's probably still in the early stages of his dark magic coma, and is perhaps sleeping nearby. Either way, I doubt he'd want to be part of the shot, even if he was okay and well, if you know what I'm saying. The next screenshot is interesting, because it actually raises more questions than it answers. We see Callum, Ezran, and Bait standing on what looks like the deck of a ship with crates and barrels spread about. But what's interesting here is the question of who they're actually looking at. After discussing with a dozen or so people from my fan server, like in the description, we suspected that it may actually be Villas himself, which makes sense given the fond look on the brothers' faces. Or maybe not, as this figure doesn't really resemble Villas at all. But then again, he could have had an outfit change over the 2-year gap, almost everybody else has. Also, something else to note, where is Ezran's crown, or Callum's staff? This scene could be them potentially attempting to befriend the pirates from the first poster. Hiding their valuable items would probably be a smart thing to do if that were the case. So maybe this being here is actually the captain of the red-sailed ship, or maybe not. The fond look sort of implies familiarity if you ask me, so it's probably Villas. Now this next one is probably the most interesting to me. Here we see Viren within his own dark dream. There are many opportunities for symbolism here. I think the doors could symbolize Viren's journey throughout life and the many pathways he's taken and the choices he's made to lead himself to this moment that he's at now. What's interesting is that it looks like these doors are actually the doors to the High Mage's office. There is also a dot on his finger right here. I don't know if this is an animation error or if this actually means something. Maybe it's giving context to one of the cards that said the bloodline that binds. Maybe Viren at some point in his dream drew blood from his finger for some reason. Screenshots like these are my favorite kind because they mean so many things. Now, there is something in this image that confuses me and a few others quite a bit. It might just be me, but this looks quite similar to Callum's scarf, doesn't it? What could that possibly mean? Let me know down below what you think about these images so far, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I plan to do a huge reaction video to Season 5 once it comes out, and you don't want to miss that. Trust me, it's gonna be good. Moving on, we have this image. If I'm completely honest, I don't see much going on in this one, besides the fact that we see Corvus back into the mix, which is always a good thing. They seem to be riding on the back of Zubeia somewhere, and I've also noticed that there's quite a lot of rain in this season. I wonder if rain will play a certain role symbolically this time. Also, it's hard to tell from this shot, but it looks like they might be flying over the ocean with really big waves. That, or it's just fuzzy background landscape. Perhaps they're flying towards Domina. Whatever is happening here, it's really cool to see Ezran protected by multiple Crown Guard. Sorvis confirmed? Now this shot is interesting. Here we see Amaya reunited with Callum and Rayla inside what seems to be a Sunfire library of some kind. However, the place is trashed, the lights are out, which is incredibly shocking considering they're in Sunfire territory, which is usually very bright, and they all look terrified. Even Amaya is showing an amount of concern. Perhaps this is some sort of ambush set up by Kerim and his followers, who we'll get to in a minute. In the background we can see what looks like bookshelves along with the classic Sunfire architecture, but what I find most interesting here is Rayla, who seems to have Runan's old bow and arrow. If I were to guess, I would say she found the bow around the same time she found the 4th coin in Viren's old dungeon. This is because in the short story Inheritance, Callum is also seen exploring Viren's old dungeon, where the former High Mage had kept Gren and Runan prisoner, and Callum actually ends up finding Runan's bow before discovering the infamous mirror. Now, speaking of Kerim, this screenshot shows us Kerim accompanied by another masked Sunfire elf, and they both appear to be looking at something. Many people have suggested that this could be Sol Regum they're looking at, as several theories have bounced around about Kerim and Sol Regum teaming up to bring down Janai's rule, and to restore the old status quo of no humans in Luxoria. It's also been confirmed that Sol Regum will return, so that's interesting. Something to note here is that the clothing of the masked elf seems to be scorched or seared, which is kind of interesting. We don't know who this elf behind Kerim is, but many have suspected it's a defecting member of the Six Horns, but I don't think that's true. They don't really match the profile of any of the Six Horns we saw during the trial, so it might just be some random elf assisting Kerim, but maybe it is a defecting Six Horn. Going back to the out-of-context spoilers being given context, this next screenshot gives full context to one of the cards that simply said Callum plus Kazi equals book besties. Here we see Callum, Kazi, Bait, and Stella within what I think is either the same Sunfire Elf library as the potential ambush, or a different one completely. We see repeated sprites of scrolls and books, many of which have empty pictures, which gives me the idea that they're doing research on Erebos, because as we know, all mentions of Erebos in literature are erased or destroyed upon reading it. Another thought people had is that this is perhaps Kazi helping Callum and Rayla search for information on how to free the trapped souls within Viren's cursed coins, as we notice Stella is amongst them in this scene. Maybe Rayla is just off screen somewhere reading somewhere else. And then there's this screenshot, which honestly just makes me laugh, because we have Stella and Zim just staring into our souls, and I love it. But also on a more serious note, we see Rayla once again with Runan's old bow and quiver. Wouldn't it be great if she was actually learning how to use it? I'm not sure if her assassin training would have, you know, taught her archery, but this smug look has to be coming from something. Either she hit a target or she just told a very bad joke, hence the reaction from the others. You know, I wouldn't mind either. Now, there is one specific screenshot I've saved for last, and it's this one. Y'all know how much I enjoy my Rayla MoTP, so seeing them in this state initially upset me a little, so I decided to dissect this image a lot more than the others to try and make my own theory on what's actually happening here. So, the basics first. They seem to be in some sort of underwater place, evident by the reflection of waves or refraction of light coming down through water. Also, there are these cool glowing barnacle thingies on the walls. But we see that this is the point of the story where Rayla has inherited Renan's bow, so it's likely quite late into the season, and she seems to be upset with Callum about something, which is quite the shocking contrast compared to the patient Rayla and angry Callum we saw during season 4. After analyzing this a bit, I've come up with 2 possible scenarios. The first one is perhaps that this is a scene where Rayla is accusing Callum after he speaks disdainfully about a certain Moonshadow assassin. I believe that around this time, the topic of saving the souls from the coins is brought up, and as many of you know, these souls were trapped inside these coins via dark magic. We theorize that perhaps the only way to free said souls is by using dark magic to undo the original spell, and we have doubts that any primal source could do that besides maybe star magic. But nobody on the Dragang side besides Stella has that arcanum. This brings up an issue though. If dark magic is required to undo the spell and free Rayla's family, and possibly Kapar as well, the only quote-unquote dark mage in their midst who is actually friendly to Rayla is Callum himself. And this will almost undoubtedly be the origin of conflict between them, for 2 reasons. 1, Callum will still likely be bitter about the fact that Rayla left him for 2 years, and may be unwilling to help her so soon after what she did to him. This of course could lead to Rayla accusing Callum in a way. And 2, the more important and conflict-inducing reason, one of the people Callum would have to save is Renan, or in Callum's view, the person who killed his stepfather. It's already been shown in Through the Moon and the short story Inheritance that Callum has a disdain for Renan for this reason, and I believe that this scene could possibly be her accusing him of not wanting to save Renan because of what said Moonshadow assassin did to Harrow. Obviously, this is quite a complex topic, as in Rayla's and Renan's view, Renan was just doing his job, but in Callum's view, well, Renan is a murderer who made him lose his last parental figure. This scene could perhaps be the beginning of that very intense argument, or maybe not. The environment around them gives me a bad time and place vibe when it comes to a full-on argument. Therefore, there is a second scenario I've come up with based off their body language and expressions. If you look closely at Callum's arm, it appears that he's reaching for her hand or lower arm. Rayla looks as though she just pulled her left arm back out of his reach. So instead of an incredibly angst-filled conversation, this could just be the result of Rayla being extremely jumpy due to her aquaphobia, aka her fear of water. I think what this may be is Callum offering to hold her hand while they're in an environment filled with water, perhaps as a way to help soothe her fear. But this is Rayla plus water we're talking about. She's probably so on edge about everything, she pulls away and snaps at him about how she doesn't need any help, trying her best not to show any fear, while at the same time showing us that she is indeed completely terrified. One of the reasons I think this scene is a lot more tame than other people believe is because if we're being honest here, that snappy season 1 to 3 Rayla is still in there somewhere, and if we're being even more honest, she doesn't really look all that mad. Neither does Callum for that matter. If they were arguing about Renan, or if Rayla was accusing Callum, I would suspect Callum's expression would be a lot more defensive, but instead he looks rather terrified, as if his girlfriend had just snapped at him angrily, and he was like, okay, maybe some other time. Or maybe it's something completely different and mundane. The creators love trolling us with Raylan angst, it seems. I'm looking at you, Season 4 trailer. All we can do is sit back and wait until July. That's right, if you haven't heard yet, Season 5 is confirmed to be releasing in July of 2023. Before now, we were simply given a time period of the entire summer, but now we know the month too. There are a couple of cons happening around that time, which may tie into the release in some way, but we don't know yet. Anyways, what do you think about these images? Do you agree with our theories? Also, if you want to join in on the action, make sure to join my fan Discord server. Link, as always, in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.